Sometimes I don't know what to say to start off these videos. And in this one, I really don't know what to say because I'm in the middle of a controversy that isn't really like I'm not being talked about, but I feel like everything I've said is being used for this conversation between people. And I'm talking about Dale Partridge. Now, if you're familiar with my channel very much at all, like you'll know that I've talked quite a bit about Dale Partridge over the last year. He's a figure that I constantly refer to with his tweets and a lot of I don't know, just really harsh stuff that he says when it comes to women. I've talked about that quite a bit on my channel, but also just the harsh things that he said in general. Like the first thing that I remember being like, all right, I need to talk about this was uh, uh, I need to be careful about what I say here on YouTube because there are certain words that YouTube doesn't like. Self harm, like really significant self harm. He had a tweet about that, and it was really, honestly, just gross, and it really hit me the wrong way. And I knew at that point I needed to look into this guy a little bit more. And so I made a couple videos. This was like 8 months ago, 7 months ago, and all of a sudden now everyone's talking about Dale Partridge. And on Instagram specifically, like I am getting like I got like 30 new followers, which to me isn't a lot. Okay. All right. Let's call it like it is. I'm a little YouTuber, little Instagram guy. So 30, I was like, what is going on? And it was all like these Christian moms who were like all about like their home. And like I look on stuff and I'm like, why is everyone talking? Like, why is everyone talking about Dale Partridge? And then why are all these women all of a sudden following me on Instagram? It felt like some weird thing. And then I found out that there was a very significant Christian influencer who I'm forgetting her name. I'm sorry. I really need to look up some of this stuff. I only have so much time, and I try to make sure that I could do some lives and stuff. But there was a significant Christian YouTuber who shared my video. And the reason why she shared my video about Dale Partridge is because I guess someone else was talking about my stuff. And it's just so weird to me that like there are people out there in the world who like watch my stuff, but like they don't hop in here. Like Heidi is here. Hey Heidi, uh, what's up? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We're going to be looking at some stuff here in a second. I do know what we're going to be talking about, but I don't know why exactly now is the time that we're talking about it. And Wendy is here. Partridge's first comment you shared was very harmful. Yes. Yeah. That was a while ago though. And for some reason, all of a sudden they're talking about this. I guess it's because Dale Partridge wrote an article or a podcast, did something. Honestly, I haven't had the time to really like dive into what he was talking about other than his tweets, because he's been tweeting also about this stuff about women can't teach theology. And here's like okay, of course he's going to be like that. He rolls with, Doug Wilson and those guys. Of course he's going to be like that. But what's like the shocker for a lot of these people who are his followers and have been like, I've had messages sent to me of people who are like, I was going to go and work for him, like it's like there's stuff like that, and like, so they're like followers of his. But what a bridge too far for them was that he was saying that women can't teach theology to other women. What? Like that is like the most bizarre thing.
What's wrong with you people?
It's just so weird. What a bad take, right? And I guess that is what led to tons of people, not just people who follow my stuff or would be more inclined to be interested in the kind of stuff that we cover here on the channel, but his own followers, like the people that are his, I don't know, little corner of the internet. which is much bigger than my corner. Like there's tons of people who are mad at him about this, and it makes sense, right? Because that's a terrible take. But I guess this was the one. This was the thing that just tipped them over the edge, and now people started looking into him. And I guess one of them was this podcast, this YouTube channel, little YouTube channel, but mostly a podcast, and he's got a big following on other platforms, on Instagram and stuff like that. Christ is the Cure. I've never listened to an episode, so sorry, guy, if you ever watch this. But like I've never listened to an episode, but someone told me that he gave some form of a shout out, or someone shared something of my video, and that got that out there. And now, like in the last like little while, there've been quite a few videos, or quite a few views on that video, and it's been surprising. But like then this Christ is the Cure guy, I know it's a winding long story, but this Christ is the Cure guy started Instagramming like all these questions that he has for Dale Partridge. And it's all the exact stuff that I talked about 7 months ago. You know, I did a video where like I listened to a lot of Dale Partridge's stuff. I did a lot of watching of his videos, and going and finding his LinkedIn and doing all this stuff. And I guess this Christ is the Cure guy, I'm assuming maybe he had the exact same thoughts as me, but he decided to use that and be like, ask Dale. I made my video and it kind of went to nowhere. I'm pretty sure Dale Partridge watched it, because I've learned that those people who are obsessed with media and like Twitter and stuff, they watch all these kinds of things. Not just me, but all the other channels that talk about people, they watch that stuff. They're interested in what people are talking about them. So I'm sure that he did watch that, but nothing came of it. And now this guy, Christ is the Cure, says it, and because he's of that same ilk, I guess, like that same section of the internet, like they have a lot of the same followers. And I think that it has been a headache for Dale Partridge. So they started getting into it and going back and forth, and saying things on Twitter and Instagram, and again, Christ is the Cure was saying a lot of the same stuff that I've talked about in videos about his accreditation and his seminary. And he talks about how he was turned to Calvinism in 2020, but he started Reformation Seminary and he didn't finish seminary, and he says he's been to school for 5 years. And I have like you could find it. Just search Dale Partridge, Dean Lentini, I guess, and you'll find that video of Dale Partridge is a dangerous teacher, or something. The truth about Dale Partridge, something like that. You can find that video where I go into detail about all these things. But my point is that this Christ is the Cure guy started asking these things, and like, oh my goodness, it's just interesting to see like them going at it. And I'm just like sitting here being like, I asked those questions like 9 months ago, but okay. Anyways, Dale responded to all of the criticisms that were levied against him by this Christ is the Cure guy. And it's so interesting to me. Like, so in a way, he's answering the criticisms that I've made, but he's specifically talking to this Christ is the Cure, because he wouldn't, I'm beneath him. Like, let's be honest. A lot of these guys, like when Austin Duncan was like some guy on YouTube, like that's who I am to some of these people. They don't want to give me any airtime or say my name and anything, but they'll reference some of the things that we do here on the channel, which is always just so funny to me. But anyways, so when Christ is the Cure says it, though, that's the same tribe as him. So now he has to answer it. And he did. And he did it in like this weird, like formal way, but it's like, it's a lot. Okay. We're going to dive through a document. Okay. I don't know how this document came to be. I looked on Christ is the Cure's Instagram, and apparently he's having a conversation with him today. And even that's been like this weird back and forth with them. Guys, it's so much. But anyways, all that to say is somehow Dale Partridge sent this to this Christ is the Cure guy, and that guy shared it. And so that's why we're taking a look at this. So this is a somewhat formal response to all the criticism that Dale Partridge has gotten for his educational stuff, and some of I've been public about it, his deceptive tactics on talking about his education, talking about his background, like even theological changes. It's a whole lot. So we're going to dive through this thing. So it's going to be one of those streams, but we'll have fun with it too. All right. So addressing claims of seminary training and plagiarism, written by Dale Partridge. All right. Formal paper. Like I wish it was like one of the title pages. But anyway, this document has been reviewed by members of our local church board of directors and ministry staff, which I don't know if that's supposed to be like, this is credible or I'm in trouble. Like that's I get the second part. But by God's mercy and kindness, he has ordained that my struggles be displayed in the public eye. Through the years, he has used my failures as a means of sanctification, bringing about growth through humbling experience of facing public criticism. I acknowledge that I am a sinner in constant need of the grace of Christ, which we all are. Periodically, I speak out on culturally. This is where it starts early, okay? We'll get into it, Pam. We'll get into it, okay? I see you there in the chat talking about the Pinterest stuff. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I have thoughts on that as well. We'll get into it. Oh man, there's so much. Periodically, I speak out on culturally sensitive topics, such as a couple of the words I'm not going to say because of YouTube: feminism, modesty, video games, or other triggering subjects. Whenever I do, it seems to trigger a wave of public accusations or investigations against me. So basically, I'm speaking about these sensitive topics that the world hates me speaking on, and that's why everyone's out to get me. I would push back against that and say, it's not that you're talking about those topics, it's the way that you're talking about them and the things that you're saying about them. But, to each their own. It feels as though some individuals embark on a witch hunt to uncover any faults or shortcomings they can find. And I think in a way that's true. Because I know for me, it was that really insensitive tweet about the ultimate form of self-harm that I decided I'm going to look into this guy. Who is this guy? But also, I think that's a natural question to ask when someone has something that's going around and it's crazy. Like, when you see a tweet that's like insane, you're like, who is this person? You go to their profile and see. So I think it's a natural thing to wonder when someone says something extreme, where are they coming from? Is essentially what that is. Now, I do think that there are probably people who are also like, I will destroy this person. But also, maybe don't have things that you can be destroyed with. So there's also that. Recently, a new cycle of criticism emerged. In the past few weeks, I published a 3-part series titled, we're not going to read it all because it's really long, Should Women Teach Theology to Other Women? Which garnished, basically it's just patriarchy, just full-on patriarchy. But like not even subtle, which garnered significant disagreement and offended some Christians. Mr. Nick Campbell, host of the podcast Christ is the Cure, publicly disagreed with my stance and has now embarked on a comprehensive investigation into my character. Again, I think it's fair to ask, who is this teacher and where are you coming from? He has gone so far as to label me a false teacher. That's true, he did. And has compiled a detailed document presenting a case of sinful accusations to cast doubt on my character. In light of Mr. Campbell's document, I feel compelled to address his statements in a meticulous manner, addressing each one word for word. All right. This is a lesson on how not to deal with criticism. Like, one, don't be in a place where you force this kind of criticism. And I do think Dale forced it. But also, like, don't do this. This is not the right way to go about things. This is one of those things that you think, I think there's probably a lot of emotions attached to it. But only women have emotions. All right. So Mr. Campbell's words are in red. My responses are in black. So we're going to deal with a couple of these ones. Academic plus theological training credentials. Claim number 1, undergrad. So Dale has claimed that he has an undergrad, and he's referenced it a couple times, and he gave a link there to a video. And Dale's response: I have never claimed to have an undergraduate degree, but I passed the GRE exam and demonstrated I was educated enough to partake in graduate level education. I feel this claim was listed only to reduce my authority as a Bible teacher. That's the kind of attitude you're going to get throughout. Claim number 2, graduate. Graduate Study Certificate 2020 without honors, 16 credits. So he's just saying this is what Dale has for an education. Now, again, I've talked about this many times. A pastor doesn't have to go to seminary. He doesn't have to go and get, an undergrad, a graduate, maybe even a doctorate. Like, that's not the requirements for a pastor. But if you're going to be a president of a seminary, and this is something that I brought out in my video, and I've seen Christ the Cure talk about it quite a bit. If you're going to be the president of a seminary, you should probably have gone to seminary and finished seminary. It's not too much. It's what is expected in the secular world. For instance, I would not be able to be the president of a seminary, or at least an accredited one, because I only have a Master of Divinity. All right. Now, while that's, a pretty advanced degree when it comes to theology, it's not a PhD. It's not a D-Min, a doctorate of ministry. It's not one of those. And so I wouldn't be qualified to be a president of a seminary. Now, could I teach at a seminary? Maybe, probably not. I probably couldn't get my foot in the door with just that degree. I'd probably still need a PhD. And this guy is the president of a seminary, and he's saying, a lot of things about his education, but he didn't have that education, or at least didn't complete it. So he has what is called a graduate certificate from Western Seminary, which is 16 credit hours. Now, if you're doing full-time, graduate work, that would probably be like 1.5 to 2 semesters of work. So it's not a lot, is what I'm trying to say. But that's what he has completed. And I don't know why I think it was the claim, like Dale says, the claim without honors, again, seems to be an attempt to diminish my intellect. I don't know about that, but it was a little much, to put it that way. But claim number 3, I personally have gone to seminary. So this is something that Dale said. I personally have gone to seminary. I finished my 2-year graduate studies program at Western Theological Seminary. Since I didn't have an undergraduate degree, I was accepted under what is called an academic exception by way of ministry experience and had to pass a class called the GRE. Nevertheless, I did attend seminary. And Dale's response: on the Western Seminary website, it claims 8 months. So this was something that I saw too. He was basically like, it took me 2 years to finish this 8-month thing, which is fair. We all have, different things that we're dealing with in our lives that keep us from getting things done at, the right amount of pace. I'm no one to judge on how long it takes to get your degrees. It took me forever to finish my undergrad, my master's. I have a master's in ministry and a master of divinity, and it took me way longer than what's expected. But at the end of the day, I finished. So there's also that. But 8 months. 8 months is like what he was getting at. And it took me a long time as a husband, father, pastor, and full employee. This was not realistic. I took 6 classes. I took 1 to 2 classes per semester, and it took me just about 2 years to complete. So that's to me, that's probably the fair one. Just that. I still agree that pastors should have some form of seminary training. It's not necessary, but it's helpful. So there's a bunch of claims about him just talking about school. So claim number 5, graduate, attended master's seminary. Oh, yeah. So this is some of the wording that Dale uses, and this is something that I brought out in my video months ago of Dale constantly does this, where he says, I attended, and he puts it in that past tense to help you understand that he was there and he's no longer there. The implication that I think most of us would get when hearing someone say, oh, that's where I went to seminary, or I attended that seminary, when you just put it that way, and it's in a context where you're trying to build up credibility for yourself of why you're able to teach theology, like it sounds like you graduated, right? Like to say, I attended. There are different ones where he goes into like this idea of how he finished his degree, finished his studies, completed maybe his studies at Western Seminary, and then went to masters and or completed his, like it's phrasing like that, completed and attended, and everything is in the past tense to make you think that he has degrees in these places. And he references like Western Seminary, then Master's Seminary, and then Grace Baptist Theological Seminary, which is Owen Strachan's school. And he says that he's continuing his education there. Makes it sound like he has 30 degrees, when he puts it that way, and the way that he does it, but he doesn't. He doesn't have any graduate degree. He didn't finish, like he did get the graduate certificate, which again, 16 credit hours. And then he went to master's, and he even showed him his like Dale sent like this picture of the classes that he took at master's, which is just, it's weird that it's getting to that point. But so he sent him the picture of the classes that he took at master's, and he didn't finish there. And then he went to Grace, and he didn't finish there, and he's not going there anymore. And in a lot of his stuff, even until very recently, I think maybe even this past week, I haven't checked, it was all listed as like, this is where he's going. So it's like, it makes it seem like he went and got a bunch of degrees and that he's had a bunch of education, but he didn't finish any of the graduate degrees. He doesn't have one. He has a certificate, which is something. Like, again, not every pastor has to go and get all these degrees. So I'm not saying that, but when you're presenting yourself as an authority on education, as a president of a seminary, like that's a bit much. I think that's fully deceptive, of saying like, yeah, I went to seminary. And there are even references, it's somewhere buried in this thing, of 5 years. Like, I went to seminary for 5 years, and that's like how he has credibility. But that makes you think like, oh, he has an education because he was there for 5 years. Like, that means like he's got at least 1 or 2 graduate degrees, right? But no, he was like, that's how many years he's been in seminary, and he hasn't finished. And he's only been taking a few credit hours at a time, which is fine if you say that. Like, if you say that's what I got, and you aren't the president of a seminary. But yeah. But it's just very interesting. So let's see what, like, I really want to focus on what Dale says about himself rather than what Christ is the Cure is saying, because again, all those things I already said months ago. I'm not trying to be like I was the first one. I'm just saying like these are the things that I've already talked about on these videos. So we'll focus on Dale. I enrolled in the MDiv program at Master's Seminary, completing an additional 20 credits, 8 classes. With a cumulative GPA of 3.94. I lived in Oregon and was told they were launching an online program within a year of my program's start date. They offered the first 20 credits online for students who wanted to start online and relocate to complete the program. However, I could not relocate to California, nor did I want to. That's fair. The online program they did launch required local TMS graduate mentorship and an affirmation of dispensational premillennialism, among other doctrines, which I denied. Furthermore, I was gravely ill and looking for ways to shorten my seminary program. TMS did not offer a shorter program and required me to look elsewhere. Oh my goodness. That's funny. He's the president of a Sunday school. He probably is. He probably teaches Sunday school. So I think that's accurate. But yeah, like, again, like, these are all things that you could say. Like, you don't have to bury it in this deceptive language, making people think that you have degrees that you don't. Like, and like, he's saying it as if the people who are talking about it. So this guy, Mr. Campbell, I think is what he calls him, and me, like, I've talked about him too, and many others have talked about him since. Like, as if we should be ashamed for saying like, oh, you were ill. You didn't have to put it the way that you did. Like, it's okay that you didn't finish your seminary. No one is saying like that's the problem um, with his ministry or anything, that he didn't finish his stuff. What people are saying is that he's acting and saying things like he did, and he's making people think that he did. He's not correcting them. He isn't saying like, oh, I didn't actually finish everything. Like, and then yes, starting your own seminary. All right, Vaughn's hopping in. Start your own seminary. Yeah, he started his own seminary. That makes people think that you have more degrees than you do. And it's the same problem. I said this even in a video. It's the same problem that I have with Theos Online, whatever they do. That Nick guy who's from Hillsong and Finocchio. He's starting a seminary. Are we all starting seminaries now? Like, what? I worked real hard. Okay. Like, that's also part of it. I worked my butt off to get my degrees. And it is somewhat frustrating. And, I was working full time. I have 3 kids. By the time I had 2 kids when I finished. So like, I know what it's like. I've been through hardships. I've been through job transitions while still trying to finish my school, and I worked my butt off to do it. And it's just like really frustrating for someone to be like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, me too. And it's like, bro, you didn't finish. Like, stop acting like you did. like, come on. It's not fair. It's not fair. And honestly, it's super deceptive to your listeners. Let's keep on going here. So let's see more on this education in this interview. Went to Western for a year and then over to Messer Seminary for a couple of years. Went to GP. Yeah, it's a lot of that kind of stuff of I went here for a time, finished here, completed my stuff at, all of that kind of language. And over again, he's just saying things like this. At the time of that recording, the plan was to finish my MDiv program there. Again, no dishonesty. The video was posted just 2 months before 2023. So I should have said 4 years. So he was talking about I've spent 5 years in seminary and I'm still doing some more seminary. This video was posted just 2 months before 2023, so I should have said 4 years. I was rounding up and should not have said that. Everything else is valid. I'm still pursuing seminary training, and I was at one point in the MDiv program. It's all that kind of stuff. At one point, that was true. It's like, okay, well, it's no longer that point. Like, so maybe you should clarify. All right, so our program, so then he's talking about how he requires all this stuff of his own students, and it's not accredited, and there's no opportunity. There's no opportunity for federal student aid, all that kind of stuff. Our program is a 1-year program that requires a full curriculum, graded papers, 2 to 3 4-hour days, in-person intensive, quizzes, monthly phone calls, and full transcripts. We are not accredited and do not desire to be. That's good because you wouldn't get it. I think it's like, okay, we have graduated 4 groups of men who would be offended at the idea of our school being a diploma mill. Our program requires hundreds of hours of work and has produced nearly 50 incredible graduates. Okay. At this point, Mr. Campbell is thinking evil. All right, let's read this one. Here, Dale says, I finished my 2-year graduate studies program at Western Seminary. At 611 was speaking to an MDiv, says it's double the length of a master's degree and it's 4-year graduate program. Luckily, I'll be able to transfer some credits from my previous seminary experience, giving off the impression that his 2-year program was a master's. The rest of the episode speaks of the importance of this training and argues that pastors should be trained. This is what Dale does, like all throughout his stuff. It's constantly stuff like that of just being like, I am, yeah. I've been there for so long. And again, just giving the implication that you have a degree that's going to move forward to another degree. I have a master, like when I was finishing my MDiv, my master's of ministry fed into my MDiv. It's not that I had, a bunch of intro to this and intro to that built up into so many credit hours that I could then say I have basically the equivalent of another degree. No, there's a way that you build up like an actual curriculum. Like that degree isn't just made up of a bunch of individual classes that you can throw in together. It's made up to fit into something else if you want to move forward. And so it's just a lot of this stuff, and it's frustrating and it's dishonest. And here he's just over and over again just saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. Technically, if you look at the exact wording, then it's not actually a lie. And it's like, you know how people are going to hear that. Like, I think he knows. At this point, Mr. Campbell is thinking evil of my intentions. I don't think anyone was. It keeps on coming up. A master's degree is typically 30 to 35 credit hours, depending. An MDiv is 100 credits, around that. I was able to transfer a chunk of my credit for Western, which was helpful. I still agree that pastors should be trained. So it's just like it builds up into this other thing technically. No, it doesn't, because it's not meant to. Like it's not that you could just throw on, I took 5 classes at this one place, which is basically like I did half a year at this other school. No, that's not how it works. And that's not how these degrees are built. They're built to build up to something, build up to that degree, build up to the next, higher course. It's not like just a bunch of intros to this, an intro to that, and all that kind of stuff. There was another one that I wanted to point out. There's so much in here. We're not going to go in. Like, look at all this stuff. There was one that I wanted to talk about, though, where he was claiming to, is it this? Yeah, maybe it is. I think it's this one. Yeah, this one. So claim 17. So lots of claims. So this one's important, though. In another message on the same thread, Can a Woman Be a Pastor? Partridge states, the implication is that he has a credible and completed education from an institution, and that education is his appeal to authority. Furthermore, his graduate study certificate in biblical theology, biblical theological studies, according to alumni who graduated with a degree at Western, his certificate program does not inherently include biblical languages. The entire catalog can be seen here. When looking at the classes he took from Master's Seminary, there are no classes. That's big. No classes that have Greek, Hebrew within them. He may know them, but he didn't take them from a seminary. That's what Campbell is saying. There's Bible exposition in the first course and 2 second-year courses. The catalog notes the meaning of Hebrew and Greek terms and grammatical constructions are discussed when they make special contributions to an understanding of the biblical text. But the courses listed under his heading and designated by BI in the course identification do not require prerequisite study or facility in the biblical languages unless otherwise noted. In other words, he's saying that he knows Greek and Hebrew and like from seminary, but he didn't learn Greek and Hebrew at seminary. Like, it's not in there. It's not in like the picture that he sent this guy. It's not a requirement of what he did at Western. Like, that's big. Now, again, like I have an MDiv. I was able to circumvent some of my Hebrew. That's why I don't claim to be a scholar on Greek and Hebrew. like I know a lot more Greek than I do of Hebrew. But I still had to take stuff. I still understood like what I need to do when I go to a text of scripture, and I never claimed to be like the expert on biblical languages. That's why I don't talk about, also I don't want to talk about translations because that's boring. I'm sorry. For those that do it, power to you, but that sounds to me like the most boring conversation in the world. But I never claimed to be, an expert in those arenas. Dale does. And even in the thread on this, like some of the feedback that he's gotten about this controversial article and podcast, Can a Woman Be a Pastor? And Can Women Teach Theology? He's acting as though he's an authority on this stuff. So how does he get around that? Well, this is how he says it. And I think this is like the perfect culmination of all this stuff. In the eyes of God, big words to start off. In the eyes of God, being trained is what matters. A degree is great, but the substance of seminary is education and is what counts in ministry. As for my training in languages, I completed Dr. William Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek and Hebrew and pursued further personal studies in the languages on my own. I still diagram my weekly sermon text in both Greek and English. Again, Mr. Campbell's accusations are about my implications, not about my actual words. And yes, my last semester at TMS ended in spring 2021. This guy isn't like, he's answering his critics by gaslighting everyone and saying, well, you don't know my heart when I said that. Obviously, no one knows your heart except for God. Like for you, we have to look at your words and guess your implication. And the vast majority of people who are going to look at some of these statements that he said, specifically even about the Greek and Hebrew, are going to think that he's an expert on that stuff and that he took classes on it. And he's like, well, I did it on my own. I read a book. How does he put it? I completed Dr. William Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek and Hebrew. I read a book. I watched videos. I'm an expert. Like that's where we're at with this guy. Like that is who he is. And then, he gets into a bunch of the stuff like he gets into some of the stuff that I talked about earlier with the ultimate form of self-harm and some of that criticism. And it's just like, you can go and find this Christ is the Cure on Instagram. He did this stuff. It's just insane. And then he gets into like how he came to Calvinism. He's like, yeah, I changed my mind. And then I started a seminary about it a year later. Or like 6 months ago. Here's I think where some of this is also coming from. 6 months ago, he started contacting women online, which seems super sketchy, just to be honest. But he started going at some of these women online who have big followings and trying to get them to come to his seminary. And I don't know if it's enrolling or volunteering or, promoting or whatever, but he's trying to get them involved with theological education. That was 6 months ago. And then this week, women can't teach women theology. I said it 8 months ago. The guy is a pendulum. He just swings back and forth to what he thinks is popular, what trend is working, and he's going to go there. So right now, he's on the pendulum of Doug Wilson. Everything Doug Wilson is, that's what this guy is going to be. He's going to say all the same things. He's going to follow that same group. And it's really, really wrong. Sorry, still getting over being sick. I knew I should grab some water. I tried to stream the other day. I was coughing a storm. But yeah, it's a lot of that kind of stuff. You can go and find it. Christ is the Cure on Instagram. And basically he just comes out and says like, these people are they're jealous of me. He doesn't say those exact words, but people are jealous of me because of my platform and trying to take me down a peg. And no, you just say stuff that's pretty wrong. And you make people pretty upset on Twitter. And so, yeah, people are going to have some issues and people are going to look closer. Like, I don't know why. This is the same thing that I hear about, a bunch of different people. They're trying to incite so much conflict, but then they get so surprised when people actually call them out on it. It's so weird. Like, they say the most controversial things on Twitter, and then they're shocked that, I would make a video. Or that someone else would talk about them, and like refute something that they said, and they'd be like, "Well, you should have phone called me," as if I have your phone number, as if I want to give out my phone number, or oh, like you should have sent me a message about it. Like, I've gotten that stuff from some of these folks, and it's just like, why? You go out on Twitter every day spouting out the most controversial stuff that you could think of. And I have to imagine it's that, because just the numbers. Like, you can't do this every day on accident, of where you're just finding the most controversial way to say something and make people upset. Like, that's thought out. That's you sitting at a table with a notebook, writing out a sentence and being like, that one's too light. I need to be harsher. You know, like, that's you workshop this stuff. So why are you surprised when people are going to look into your past? So for all those guys who do that, like, stop being surprised that you're going to have some people who are going to be like, hey, wait, did you even finish your education? Like, that's a big one to leave open. like, or, you know, some of the other stuff that these people have done and said is just, why are you surprised at any of this? And like, if you have that, why do you even go and put yourself out there in that way? It's so weird. It's so weird to me. Let's talk also, man, weird stuff. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Let's see. Oh man, there's been some stuff going on with Pinterest. Okay. It's pretty bizarre. Some of the stuff. Oh, that's interesting. Well, kind of saw that one coming. Okay. All right. Man, I got excited that there would be someone in that circle that would actually stand up to somebody. And it looks like there's been some backing off. That's disappointing. I'm not going to show it, but you could go and find it on Twitter. Dale Partridge, there's stuff going on around about his account about Pinterest, and how there's a bunch of stuff about different things that he pinned for his apparently for his wife, because he thinks that, like, he put it in it's like a post. I don't even know how Pinterest works. All right, I thought it was like just a website that you go to that like has stuff, but it's like a website you go to and you can share different things that you like, I guess. And he shared a bunch of stuff that he thought would look hot on his wife, and that's his account. Now, I think there's something about he bought a company and the company did it on his behalf. I don't know, but like some of the things that he liked or pinned or whatever on that website, it's like, wait, what? Bathing suits and weird stuff for a man to be like, yes, I like that, especially when it's like someone who's really conservative and talking about like head coverings. He wrote a book just recently on head coverings, and there's like, which bathing suit is right for you, and like, what? Like, I don't know what there is about that. All right, I don't want to get into trouble and saying like this guy did it and it's not this company. I don't know, but it's super weird. And with everything else, with the plagiarism stuff, I didn't even talk about the plagiarism stuff. Like, he's been known to be a plagiarist for years, not like a decade ago. I'm talking about 2 years ago. He was caught for plagiarism, like significant plagiarism. And like, it's just this, he's not someone to learn from, guys. He's not someone to learn from. All right, I'm going to do it. Live reaction to Christ is the Cure, I guess, just posted, and I saw it because Dale Partridge retweeted it. It was on the front thing as soon as I opened up Twitter. I was looking for something else, but I guess we're going to look at this instead. So let's take a look over here. Let's move this down a little bit. All right, a little OCD about that kind of stuff. All right, let's see. Live reaction to this. Okay, so this is from Dale Partridge's thing. He's retweeting, I guess, a picture from Christ is the Cure. If you've been following, Nick and I reconciled, to God be the glory. Okay, I'm okay with people reconciling, but that makes me go like, what happened? So I knew that they were having a phone call. That didn't work properly. All right. So this is from Christ is the Cure on Dale Partridge. Dale and I had a great and God glorifying conversation. We both extended forgiveness to one another, and we cleared up concerns on both ends. We repented of his statement. He repented of his statements that misrepresented his education and agreed to be more vigilant and forthright in the future. He's also planning on nipping that topic in the bud and the other issues I brought up. His admittance was genuine, and I have no reason to doubt it. As a result, both of our related documents have been removed, and I'm sure Dale's clarification will be helpful. Because of that, I won't be speaking further on this subject publicly or privately. I repented of calling him a false teacher or giving off the impression that I held him definitively in that category, and how I handled various interactions online. I also wanted to clarify that my intention was not to bow out of private discourse at any point, but that it seems we had an extreme miscommunication on that front, even as we worked to get a meeting together. For example, I never clarified that our recorded Zoom would not be published publicly. Instead, it would only be for my record. Dale wanted to resolve the issue in a one-on-one setting where the conversation could be cool and collected, and a published discussion could add intensity. Okay, to which I agree and understand why he wanted to avoid it. We approached each other with kindness, but were also firm on where we had issues with one another. This means that the reconciliation and dealing of concerns were kind, but not mere passive, shake hands and make up. Further, we recognize we differ on secondary issues, but both preach the same Christ and him crucified, the same gospel. Ultimately, we prayed, laughed, and gave glory to God for his grace. We have agreed to move on to ministry as usual. Lord knows we're both busy and have stuff to hop to. Comments will be off on this post because I'm tired, need a nap, and to play with my kids. Nick, Christ is a cure. Org. Huh. I don't know what to make of this. You know, you want to believe people. I'll admit that. Like, I'm actually more inclined to believe people when they apologize. I know it might not seem that sometimes when I'm talking about things on my channel, but in real life, that's how I am. If someone apologizes, it's just like, okay, and they mean it, and it's all right. But we're talking about a lot of deceptive tactics. That's the phrase that I'll put. Deceptive tactics on his education for years. And I think we need something publicly about that, and like not just like defending yourself over and over and over again before I'd be like, oh, I would, like, I'm not here to, I'm just a guy on the internet. Let me put it that way. I'm just a guy on the internet. So like, you know, Dale Partridge doesn't have to apologize to me. I never cared about his ministry. Like, just being honest. Like, I just saw other people and was like, you guys need to be careful on this guy. So like, he matters as a Christian and as a person, but not as someone that I would be learning from or, you know, whatever. So like, he doesn't owe me an apology or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think that he owes his followers an apology for misleading them. But it's interesting. I'll just put it as that. This is interesting. Maybe it's genuine, maybe it's not. I'm not the judge of, you know, whether it is, but I would want Dale to say something publicly about, you know, because he put that was public. That's how I was able to get it. No one sent it to me. You know, it's a public thing where he basically just says, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong over and over and over again, except for the plagiarism stuff, because he's already been found out about that stuff. So I would need a public statement of some kind, just saying this is like, I was wrong about this stuff and I should have said it. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. It's a little disappointing in a way, because at least information should be out there, whether again, the private conversations are private conversations, but if it's going to be said publicly that we had a private conversation, that clears everything when there's been all this information and deception out there. Like, I think that that's probably what you should do. You should actually give the information, say, here's the light, not just, oh, there was a bunch of darkness, but now it's gone. It's like, well, what was the light that, got rid of that darkness? We would like to know, because you guys have been talking about it, and Dale has had these issues for a while now. So like, maybe that should be public record. Doesn't mean that the conversation has to be, just the information. So I would hope that in the coming days, Dale Partridge would put something out about his education and being like, hey, here's where I'm at, and I was wrong to mislead people, and all that kind of stuff. But right now, this doesn't like turn anything in my head of where I've had him in my own mind. But I guess it's good when brothers in Christ can get along. And I've never said that he wasn't a Christian. I've just said he was a false teacher. He teaches falsely. So that's where I'm at with it. All this stuff is, yeah, Aaron has it right. It smells fishy. It just smells fishy. But I don't know. Like, if that's where it ends, I'll end it. Like, I don't need to talk about it anymore. But it's just an odd way for things to have transpired. That was a curveball. Wasn't expecting that curveball. I was expecting a little bit more truth than just we made up. And it was legitimate making up. Okay, cool. But let us know where you were able to find common ground and what was actually like the truth of it, rather than just saying we got over it. Yes. Let's see. Heidi says, just because Nick has been satisfied with the info he received in private doesn't mean that all of us who have been watching this go down publicly have to accept that. Agreed. Like, I'm glad that he's satisfied, and like, again, I don't know who he is. So, I'm sorry. I don't pay attention to everybody. I don't got time for that. But cool. I'm glad that he is, but I still have those questions, and I think a lot of his followers have those questions, and it's not me, but the followers, they deserve to have, some truth on, and some public repentance on public things that have been said and led some of them to make almost like some pretty drastic decisions in their life. And they've listened to this guy, and they supported him, and they've given money to his ministries, and shared his ministries. I think that they deserve a little something, as far as just having a little bit of, this is where I was at, and this is what I meant, and here's where I was wrong. And not just like, this Christ is a cure guy is wrong here, and he's wrong here, and he's wrong here with this document that was sent out. All right. That's what I wanted to share. That's what I wanted to talk about. You could hit the like button if you're still here. If you're still here and you're at least okay with us talking about this, and you like what we do here on the channel, hit the like button. It really matters. It means that this video will go out to a few more people. And if you're, if you are concerned about Dale Partridge's ministry, leave a comment saying where you have those concerns. And I think that would be helpful for anyone who'd stumble across this video, because it's not just about, me saying these things into the camera. It's also about you guys being here, being part of the community, and sharing your thoughts and your opinions about these things. It's why, this channel is all about underdog theology. It's for the underdogs. It's for the rest of us who don't have the big platforms, and we can share our thoughts together. So whatever you think about the relearn Christianity, whatever Dale Partridge's ministry stuff, share that down in the comments section, because there are going to be people who will cross, like just trip over this video basically, and looking for different things on Dale Partridge, and your comment might help them. So share it down below, and I will see you later on in the week. Bye.